attendance. All right, gonna move on here. So thank you all for coming to our writing workshop number 1. The topic of tonight's meeting is going to be conducting legal research and building your legal argument. So we're going to have both of our executive editors, Nick Suit and Nick Wolf, go over kind of a lot about what you actually start off with when you're kind of getting into the researching and writing process. We have our topic selection form, which is going to be due in about 5 days. So that's on Sunday. So don't miss that deadline. Obviously, if you miss deadlines, I consider you. So please don't make our lives more difficult than they need to be, or your lives more difficult than they need to be. The topic selection form's fairly short. It's just going to ask you some brief things. And it's going to be largely based on most of the topics that we cover tonight regarding legal research, finding a legal topic, and how to start building your legal argument / thesis. Then on Tuesday, 7 days away, senior editor application. So this is the new round for this semester. If you're already a senior editor, you don't need to reapply. So if you're already a senior editor, you're already taken care of. However, if you're maybe reapplying or you haven't applied before, but you think that you should apply now, make sure to get that application in by Tuesday night. All of these deadlines are 11:59 p.m., typical. And then the last thing is that keeping in mind what we talk about tonight, and especially what we talk about next week, is that your outline, summary, and thesis is going to be due on Thursday, the 23rd. So for those of you that like to kind of plan further out, you can keep that in mind. And as always, this meeting presentation is being recorded and will be available on Thursday. That's all I really have to say for right now. I'm going to pass it over to Danielle, who's going to talk about some events, and then we'll get into the meat of tonight's meeting.
Okay, so some of our upcoming events and updates. Next meeting is our writing workshop number 2. It's going to be in 1 week, 6 p.m. in the same room as usual. And this Friday, February 3rd, there is an LSAC Digital Law School Forum. Registration for it ends tomorrow. These forums are a good opportunity to connect directly with representatives from more than 90 law schools throughout the country. So any questions you may have about the admissions process, financial aid, the LSAT, and more, this is a great opportunity to get those questions answered by law schools directly. And 2 upcoming events to look out for. Professor Cornell will be speaking to us in the upcoming weeks about the Second Amendment. He's an expert on this topic, and we're really looking forward to hearing from him. And also on April 14th, we are going to have our annual Dinner with a Lawyer event. So take note of this date and look forward to more information coming soon.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the topic selection review. So when choosing a topic, the first question is, where should I look? So first, you should be looking at reputable legal sources, such as SCOTUS blog, LexisNexis, Reuters, NYUCS, etc. We try to inform you guys to stay away from just simply Googling and clicking on the first random thing you see. You really should be looking at reputable legal sources so that when you're starting to compile your different citations and the different things that you're looking at, they're all reputable. You can also take some inspiration from any law-related classes you might have had, internships, other interests, conversations with professors, or even conversations with friends as well. So you can really choose any topic you want, but it has to be an original legal argument. So some important considerations. Is your topic narrow enough? So you want to avoid being too broad to the point where you can't really narrow down at all, but you also don't want to narrow down too much to the point where you literally can't find anything about your argument. So for example, if you're interested in cybersecurity, we would not recommend just writing about cybersecurity in general. Maybe focus on a specific law in a specific state, a specific act, or something like that. So it's narrow enough that you can come up with a legal argument, but it's not too narrow to the point where you have nothing. Are there enough resources you can use? So please try to avoid picking topics where there's really only like 2 sources out there on it. You need to be using a variety of different sources in order to build your argument. And you don't want to run into the situation where you start writing for, say, the print publication and you're on page 5 and you're like, well, I'm out of sources. So it's best to set that in motion now so that that doesn't happen too. It's very important to be original. You can't write about the same exact topic with the same argument as someone else. So you want to make sure that what you're coming up with is original and unique to you, and it's your own argument. So remember, you also only have 1 semester to write this. So it is a lot of time to develop a topic and develop a note. But you don't want to bite off more than you can chew and end up, while we're already on draft 2 and you realize you're way too far in, and you still have a lot more to go. So we would want you to try to avoid that. And also to contribute a viewpoint that is useful to the legal community. I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. So what is required at the end of the day for the note is you just have to make a legal argument. So in this QR code, we showed this at our last meeting, but if you don't have access to the resources shared drive, scan the QR code. If it doesn't work, you can come up to us afterwards and we'll figure that out for you. So just some resources that are in there. We have our style and citation guide, which you need to be using when you're formulating your note. This is how they have to be done. We don't do MLA or anything like that. We follow this style and citation guide. We also have a YouTube channel that has various tutorials on there if you need a little bit of extra help and you want to do it on your own time. We have these weekly workshops and meetings where we are right now. We also assign senior editors to you early on in the process. So these can be sort of a mentor for you. And they also act as the first editor that you reach out to if you need any help. And then we also have office hours with eBoard members that we introduced last semester. So we're always here if you need any extra help with your topic or choosing it or writing or whatever you need. So conducting legal research. So if you guys, for the returning members, you guys have probably already heard this a million times, but we're going to go through it one more time. So when you're looking for your legal sources, the first thing you can look at is databases. So SCOTUS, the Library of Congress, Unified Court Systems, JSTOR, or Google Scholar. This is a great resource for you guys if you want to do research on your topic, or if you simply want to just peruse around to see if you can find a potential topic as well. Next is Nexus Uni. We'll be going through a tutorial next week in our next workshop, but there's also a YouTube tutorial online that a previous eBoard member made that's very helpful if you don't know how to use Nexus Uni already. You can also use certain websites like SCOTUS blog, OIAS, C-SPAN, and Reuters. You could really use any Google source to find a topic. However, just make sure that it is legal, oriented, and reputable. And then finally, the Fordham Library. You could choose to talk to a librarian, but I know most people probably don't want to do that. So you can just peruse the online resources that the library has or go to the library and see if you can find it. And just a side note, when you're talking about court opinions or you're citing court opinions or cases, please read the entire thing. Don't just look at the first 2 paragraphs and pick out your quote and be like, all right, I'm done, I'm citing this. Please read through the entire thing when you're including it in the note. So utilizing Nexus Uni. So as I said, we're going to be doing a tutorial next week on this. And we do have a YouTube channel tutorial. But just some tips for using it. You can use a general search for finding less specific information. So if you're not really sure about your topic, you can just type in anything that you're interested in and see what pops up. You could also use the advanced search to limit the database search and come up with something more specific if you already have something in mind. You can use quotes just like in Google to lock in the specific word choices that you're using for those specific things to come up. You can check the Shepherd signal when reviewing cases. And we would also recommend just becoming familiar with the interface before attempting to do a deep dive into your potential topic. And here's a link for the tutorial, but it's online through our website. And I believe we're putting it out there in the publication, in the resources drive. So some additional researching resources that we've already went through. So these are just the different links. that are in each of the presentations that we just put out, and they're also in the drive as well.
Slide I could be up in the presentation share. Researchers drive up speeding, so you can go back and fully click the links there. You don't have to try and type that. We don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
But there'll be more information on that and the YouTube channel in regards to accessing Nexus Uni. All up on the YouTube channel and on the publication resources for that side.
And it'll be out in the email this week about how to access Nexus Uni. So don't worry about that. All right, so now I'm going to briefly touch on how to construct a legal argument in your thesis more broadly. All right, so before we get to the topic selection forum this weekend, it's probably important to touch on how to research and construct your legal argument. So first things first, it's the easy part. Find a legal topic that you're passionate about, something that interests you, and do some general background research on this topic and find a case or law that may interest you or legal controversy that may interest you. And from there, we're looking to develop a debatable position on that legal issue. We've listed some examples here below of how a thesis in this vein may be structured. For instance, like the court's decision in whatever case is correct and should be extended to another case, or perhaps that this law is antiquated and should be updated to this newer model that we've listed here. But those are just some examples, and that this is by no means an extensive list. So feel free to structure as you please. And then also importantly, we need to make sure that these notes pass preemptive originality check. What that means is that, especially concerning hot button and popular legal issues, it's going to be difficult to find certain legal viewpoints and perspectives that are truly unique to you. So it's important that you conduct some preliminary research and make sure that your legal perspective that you want to write about is truly unique and that it hasn't been echoed before. So in constructing the thesis for this note, it's important that we have an original legal argument. All three words there are equally important. When we say legal argument, we mean that it uses legal evidence to support the conclusion, and that it takes a legal stance on a matter and does not rely on philosophy, science, or any other discipline to drive the thesis and the argument more generally. This doesn't mean that your works can't be interdisciplinary in any way. We've had some of our best notes in the past, for that matter, have touched on the ramifications on legal decisions and laws that aren't necessarily entirely legally focused, but rather focused on the societal, economic, whatever ramifications of those decisions. So just ensure that the note is legally driven, but it doesn't solely have to concern the law. Yeah, that's all I touched on there. This section is mainly just a diagram that will help you construct your legal argument here. This is just a broad template for what we're looking for. Your note could, for instance, start with an objection to a current state of affairs legally and work to provide a counter argument or a superior system for that and work towards a conclusion, which you can see on the bottom there. Or we could just start with some initial reasoning concerning a legal matter that's unsolved or one that's in a state of flux right now. And then you could reach an intermediate conclusion that acts as a stepping stone towards a broader conclusion. But this is by no means an extensive list of how this a legal argument has to be structured. But it's definitely a helpful template if you're stuck structuring your note. These are definitely something that I would work with.
Okay, so I just wanted to highlight some points about the online publication because a lot of writers tend to just focus on writing for print, but the online publication is still a great option for a lot of people. So just a brief recap for those of you who may have missed our last meeting. The online publication follows the print deadlines, but has additional flexibility. They're usually around 4 to 5 pages long compared to the print, which are 9, 10, 11 pages long. So fairly significantly shorter. They're published online each semester, just like the print publication. And they also must have an original legal argument, or they can review a historical legal issue and provide commentary on it. So I would recommend this to those of you who may be first-time writers. The process can be fairly difficult. for writing for the print publication. So the online is a little bit easier since it's less writing. So if you're a first-time writer and you're a little bit concerned about if you can go through the entire print process, I'd recommend simply starting with online. If you may have a lot of time commitments this semester, I remember my sophomore year was had a lot going on. So if you're unsure if you can meet the rigor of the print publication because you have a lot of different clubs or classes, internships, whatever, I would also recommend writing for the online blog instead of the print publication. Or if you just want some additional flexibility around the deadline. So this is within reason and with approval. This doesn't mean you can just like miss the deadline and 2 weeks later be like, hey, here's my outline. This means like communicating beforehand that you might need a little bit more flexibility, and we can work on that on an individual basis. But for the print, there's significantly less flexibility just because the amount of rigor of the process. And if you want to write on a more contemporary issue, so you could write on that for print as well, but we've had a lot of very great online publications that have been written about more contemporary issues. So if you want to write on something like that, I would also recommend the online blog for you as well. So if you're starting out, if you are interested in the online blog, so starting out, selecting your topic and building your argument will be the same as print. So what we've gone through with the selecting your topic and all the resources and what have you, that's all the same for writing for online. And we also want you to utilize the same resources as well. And then the expectations are that you still have a legal argument or a perspective on a historical legal issue. We still want heavy research, although obviously you will not have as many citations or as many resources that you'll use as the print publication since it is shorter. But we still do emphasize a lot of research for the online publication. And we also want a similar level of writing and quality as print, but just on a smaller scale. So if you are interested in the online blog and you want some more information about it, you could reach out to the e-board or me directly. That's my email up there, or you could just talk to me after the meeting as well if you have any questions or you want some more background information on the online blog.
Next. All right. Thank you, Nick, for that absolutely wonderful overview. We're going to do a quick run through here. Sorry, Tom. Sorry to be poking through your laptop. We're going to do a quick run through here of what the topic selection form actually looks like. As long as, open. All right. So we're going to do a little run through of what the topic selection form is actually like and how we're going to be expecting you to go through and actually fill it out. So with the topic selection form, when you open it up, it's going to look just like that. Wonderful. So the idea behind our process, for those of you that do not know or haven't been with us for that long, you're going to start out with the topic selection form due Sunday. It is the most basic kind of standard of where we start everyone off at. These are the basic building blocks from which you are going to construct the remainder of your note. So the idea of this is that it's going to be pretty simple. However, just because it looks simple doesn't mean you should log on and look at it 30 minutes before it's due. We can tell when you've done it 30 minutes before you've submitted it. No offense to those of you that have done it in the past, but we can tell. The issue is, though, when you do it 30 minutes before it's due, when our wonderful team of editorial board members here goes through and looks at it and is writing you feedback, we can't really give you any feedback because you haven't written anything substantial. So at least have that in mind as you go through and have the deadline for the topic selection form in your mind. We're going to ask you all the basic information, blah, blah, blah. Wait here, I'll view it as an editor. So it's going to ask you all the basic information, the stuff you've done a ton of times, but then at the end, you're going to get to the actual topic selection submission. So the first thing you're going to want to denote is whether or not it's online or print. This is not binding. Don't worry about it. Just generally what you're thinking for your note. Typically, most people will put print, later they'll become online. But if you know that you want to do online right off the bat, go for that and select it. We're also going to ask for a rough working title. Title changes a lot. don't get too worked up over it. What we're really going to be asking for you to focus on is your research question / your main topic, your thesis statement, a brief outline / table of contents, and your reading list. So you're going to kind of fill this maybe a little bit in reverse order. You're going to go through, do your legal research, which Nick wonderfully just told you how to do, looking for those credible sources, looking for a legal topic to actually talk about, and then compiling that list of credible sources. You don't have to go through and format them in the FULR style for right now. Just go and look for those credible sources. 7 to 10 is what we're asking, which pretty reasonable. Then go through, you're going to discuss your research question or your main topic. An example of a research question is, I am going to be analyzing whether or not the Second Amendment is inherently constitutional and whether it should have ever been included as part of the Constitution. Don't take that word for word. That's really not a great research question, but it's kind of the idea. This is the idea that I am pursuing. And this is what I would like to generally talk about. Now, your thesis statement would be in that is that I disagree with, or the entire precedent of legal cases in the United States regarding gun control are inherently useless, as the original basis that it was founded on is legally invalid. So you can kind of see the difference there. You have your general research question, and then the thesis statement is going to be that specific thing that you begin to discuss. Kind of exactly what Nick told you about. There's different ways to build a legal thesis, and there's different ways to support your argument. A lot of people will just start out generally with their broad claim and with a general piece of support. If you go to our website, though, and go to the print or online publications, mainly print, as the thesis statements are a little bit more developed typically, you'll see in their introduction, second paragraph, you'll see they kind of lay out a roadmap. This note will first present, then this note will examine the consequences of, and ultimately this note will argue. What we're looking for in your thesis statement, this note will argue. This is your novel original legal stance that you are taking on the topic that you are discussing. Next, the brief outline, table of contents. This is your roadmap. This is how you're going to get to what your thesis statement is ultimately trying to prove. So if I'm going to be talking about Second Amendment, I'm going to say founders, then I'm going to say the idea of the Second Amendment, then I'm going to say the Second Amendment in the Constitution, then I'm going to say the Second Amendment cases up until today, and then ultimately wrap it up at the end. A lot of what your note is going to be for print publication is providing that support you need to ultimately make that final conclusion. You're going to be either supporting or deconstructing a present legal argument piece by piece, and then positing your new novel legal argument. For the online, what you might be doing more so is providing, here is a general support of this new piece of legislation, or this new piece of legislation shows that there is a very broad interpretation of what is to be left for the Second Amendment in the coming years. But you'll use your entire kind of body of work working towards that general claim, not necessarily positing quite a new legal argument. You can do that for the online case by case basis, but more so what it would be is, this is my analysis on this new piece of legal information, or this is my analysis on this piece of information that has not necessarily been taken. Then your roadmap will be obviously how you got there. Okay. Pretty good 6:30. Briefly, I know there's a lot, especially for those that haven't been here in past weeks. Does anybody have a question on generally selecting a topic, or specifically conducting legal research, or actually writing your thesis? It's totally okay if you have questions. Like, we don't bite. No one? Do we have anyone online? Okay, no one online. Yes.
What if I have 6 sources right now and I don't know if I should write or print out online? What should be my next step for the topic selection deadline?
Well, First of all, I'd make sure you've absolutely gone through this presentation and reviewed all of the legal sources that you could possibly be looking at, first of all. Then the next step is you can consult our wonderful editorial board, as we are going to be starting to open office hours leading up to the topic selection forum deadline. There's a lot of different ways you can go about deciding whether or not it's print or online. 6 sources, if you got really good legal sources, chances are there's something else out there that you just haven't found. But if you're really struggling over deciding if it's print or online, choose one, and then we will ultimately give you some additional feedback following that process regarding whether we think we could potentially see this note going all the way to print, or whether or not it would be better suited off as online. We also have some questions from the Zoom version. Should the reading list just be links to sites or fully cited? For right now, don't worry about your citations. We are going to have a full, wonderful 2 different meetings about the FUR style and citation guide, how to write FUR style citations. So for right now, just throw your links in. All you have to do when worrying about your links is make sure that they are credible legal sources. The next one. Does our topic have to be confined to the US? Wonderful question. You can write about whatever you would like, wherever you would like. And yeah, basically you have complete freedom in what you would like to talk about, except that it has to be a legal argument. So that is your only thing stopping you from talking about something. Just make sure that whatever you can take, you're ultimately winding in and taking into a legal argument. All right, wonderful. That makes sense? Yes, yes, nodding heads. Wonderful. Love to see it. All right. Any other questions online, in person, editorial board? Wonderful. Yes, great. Tom now is going to show you how to book office hours with us.
So in the interest of giving you guys the best shot at the topic selection form, you really should be consulting with the e-board if there's a relevant topic that we have for you. So this is going to be linked in pretty much every one of our emails to all of you. But you can access the slide deck here as well. You're going to go to our website at undergraduatelawreview.blog, and you're going to head to this lovely page where it's going to actually prompt you to put in a password. That's going to be FULR 2022, and I think exclamation point.
No, just FULR 2022. And Tom, if you will go to me.
I already have one set up. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Thinking ahead.
But yeah, you can see the whole e-board here. Lovely little Dropbox. See, it can show you what each e-board member specializes in. I mean, Nick Wolf, you can see right here, campaign finance law concerning environmental law. If I've got a note that I want to write on that, maybe I should book one with Nick Wolf. If I want to write about contracts, maybe you want to book with me. You can click on this button right here, and it'll bring you to this form right here. You're gonna have a whole bunch of options. Go through and click. You want to click on one of them, hit save, and it's going to put you in as a request, and it's going to send us an email that you want to meet. Some people have Zoom office hours, some people have in person. Doesn't hurt to reach out.
I do both. So I do in McGinley, B61, which is our club suite, and I also do over Zoom. Yeah, a lot of you had office hours with me last year, or last semester, so you kind of know how it goes. For those of you that haven't had office hours with me, though, when you sign up, when you're going into the thing, I haven't set up my office hours yet, so don't look. But it will be set up by tonight. It will say the place, it will say how to get there, or it will provide a Zoom invitation.
Yeah,
I don't have
put it
anything.
there. You can save it, and you'll have it right there. I recommend using that if you have any questions about your source, if you don't know if you can print it online yet. But outside of that, please use any of the resources we talked about tonight.
Yes, so cursory overview, publication resources, shared drive, YouTube, which will have this, and it has our previous meeting presentation recorded and uploaded, FULR, editorial board, office hours, and we also have an email if you have any questions. So just keep in mind, want to see great work on topic selection form, because we go through and we look at every single one and provide you detailed feedback on literally every single section. And we do this for topic selection form, outline, rough draft 1, rough draft 2, your final draft, then and then your post-final draft. So yeah, we
And
go
sometimes-
through like 7 to 8 rounds of editing for each one of yours. So if you start now, give us good stuff, then there's no reason by the end that you shouldn't be published. On that note, thank you all for your cooperation. We look forward to seeing you next week and submit by Sunday.
Follow our Instagram, please.